Murder, deceit, betrayal, gang lifestyle. This is the story of King Von, the Chicago native, old black killer, and hip-hop's first and only notorious serial killer. Journey to the mind and the story of one King Von, who would become the deadliest killer in hip-hop history. He would leave a trail of bodies and blood in his wake, at the same time being a devout father and family man. This guy is a journey into the mindset of evil, madness, gang lifestyle, originality, hip-hop, creativity, and of course, betrayal, and ultimately, a young death, murder. The story of King Von.
King Von is a rapper out of Chicago, Illinois that was signed to Little Durk's record label, Only the Family, and had Empire Distribution behind him. During Bennett's life and following his death, he was implicated in various homicides and crimes related to the Chicago gang scene. This is the story of King Von. King Von was born on August 9, 1994 in Chicago, Illinois. He had 6 half-siblings and from his father Walter Bennett and 3 siblings from his mother Taisha. He was raised mostly by his mother in the projects. His relationship with his father was inconsistent due to his father's incarcerations. His father was in and out of prison on several occasions and never was really in King Von's life. When Von was 11 years old, his father was killed by a gunman. You know, growing up in the hood and growing up in the Chicago scene, you never know if you're going to make it out your door that day. You know, King Von's father ultimately met his demise because he was in the scene and he was doing multiple things and various crimes. Von would later pay tribute to his father in multiple songs. At age 16, Von went to jail for the first time. In 2014, he was charged with 1 count of first-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted murder in connection with a shooting that killed 1 and injured 2 others, meaning King Von was really out there putting in that work. This would be the first of his many murders. This would be the first of his many alleged murders. After being acquitted of all charges, you know, Von just had that lucky horseshoe in his pocket, man. He stayed getting acquitted because people in Chicago are scared to say what they've seen. It's just like any other hood and any other ghetto and any other projects. You know, people mind their own business and they try to stay out the way. They don't want no smoke and they don't want no part of what King Von had going on. You know, Von began focusing on his music career when he got out, collaborating with Little Durk before his arrest for them charges. He attended South Suburban College in South Holland, Illinois. He earned his GED while in juvenile detention. During this time, he joined the Black Disciple Street Gang, allegedly. After fellow rapper Little Durk signed King Von to his Only the Family label, Von released his first single, Crazy Story, on December 6, 2018, and it became his breakout single. On Valentine's Day 2019, Von's girlfriend rapper Asian Doll released a music video for her track about the artist called Grandson, in which Von appeared. In May 2019, Crazy Story 2.0 featuring Little Durk was released, and a subsequent music video was later released on May 20th, 2021, and peaked at number 4 on the bubbling under 100 Hot 100 charts. On September 13, 2019, a third rendition of the single called Crazy Story Part 3 was released, and on July 9, 2019, Little Durk and King Von released their collaborative single, Like That. On September 2, 2019, Von released the single, What It's Like. The single then appeared on his album Grandson Volume 1. So Von was definitely putting in that work. He was blowing up on the scene quick. He was making a name for himself and a reputation that precedes him. But at the same time, he was also living a double life. He was in the streets really with the activities. He was really out there in the streets really with the business. You know, on September 19, 2019, Von released his 15-track mixtape Grandson Volume 1, featuring Little Durk on a pair of tracks. The album debuted at number 75 on the Billboard 200 and number 27 on the hip-hop R&B album charts. On November 16, 2019, Von released his single 2 a.m. On November 29, 2019, Von released his single Rollin', featuring Y N.W. Melly and accompanied with the music video. On April 29, 2020, King Von released his single Grandson for President. He followed the single up closely with the music video for Broke Ops, a song for LeBron James. He then released another single. So basically, he was out there really doing his thing. He was out there making things happen. And that's what happens in the industry. It goes fast. You get in the scene, you're really out there making contacts, really out there making moves, and you start to blow up. But King Von had a lot of secrets, a whole lot of secrets going on behind the scenes. King Von was in an on and off relationship with Texas rapper Asian Doll, but the two were reportedly not in a relationship at the time of his death. King Von had 3 children, 1 son and 2 daughters. On November 21st, 2012, King Von was arrested and booked into the Cook County Jail for unlawful possession of a firearm. On July 24, 2014, King Von was arrested in connection with a shooting in May 2014, resulting in the death of Malcolm Stuckey and the injury of 2 other men. King Von was charged with 1 count of first-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. The shooting took place in Inglewood, Chicago, and from what witnesses said, it was over a dispute. Witnesses always failed to tell the truth, so at the end of the day, his lawyer was able to produce enough evidence showing that his client was not in the vicinity at the time of this murder. Witnesses failed to testify in 2017, and King Von was found not guilty. In June 2019, King Von and fellow rapper Lil Durk were arrested in connection with a shooting in Atlanta. King Von and his co-defendant Banks appeared before a judge in the Fulton County courtroom for a probable cause hearing. Prosecutors claimed that the 2 rappers robbed and shot Alexander Witherspoon outside a popular drive-in on February 5, 2019. After weeks in jail, Durk was released on a $250,000 bond, while Von was released on a $300,000 bond. This guy stood getting in trouble. This guy stood in the mix. He was actively out in the streets. A repeat shooter is what they call him. In July 2021, the Chicago police released documents concluding that King Von was responsible for the fatal shooting of 17-year-old Gangster's Disciple member Jakira K.I. Barnes in April 2014, but they were unable to prosecute him due to inconsistencies in the witness statements. Again, this is a reoccurring theme in the life of Von. He would be accused of all these shootings and all these murders, but at the same time, none of the witnesses ever stepped up to make statements because they knew what time it was. When you have an active member of a gang or active demon out there on the streets, you already know people don't want that smoke. He also had serial killer allegations. Now, this is one thing you have to know about Von. He was out there putting in so much dirt. After so many bodies, you're considered a serial killer. You're considered someone who's really out there in them trenches, putting in the work on the front lines. Here goes the serial killer allegations. In April 2023, over 2 years after Bennett's death, a 4-hour-long documentary titled King Von, Rap's First Serial Killer was released on YouTube by the filmmaker Trap Laurie Ross, in which it was alleged that King Von had been a serial killer who was involved in at least 10 murders, including the murders of P5 Modell, Malcolm Stuckey, and Jakira K.R. Barnes. King Von had been acquitted for the murder of Stuckey while he was alive and was concluded by Chicago authorities to be responsible for the murder of Barnes in 2021. In addition, there was also the theme of the murder of another rapper affiliated with the GDs, such as FBG Duck, whose suspects are some of King Von's companions. He himself would appear to be the mandator, meaning that he himself would be the shot caller that put that plan in motion, allegedly. The documentary was praised by many, but was soon taken down from YouTube following backlash from family and fans of King Von. The documentary was later re-uploaded and gained big numbers. On November 6, 2020, at around 2:15 a.m., King Von and his crew were involved in an altercation with Quando Rondo's crew, allegedly, outside of the Monaco Hookah Lounge in Atlanta, Georgia. The dispute quickly escalated into gunfire, and King Von was shot multiple times. He was transported to a hospital in critical condition and died there later that day. He was 26 years old. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations reported that 2 people were killed and 6 wounded. One of them was placed in police custody for the murder of King Von while being treated for a gunshot wound. The suspect later was identified as Timothy Leaks, age 22, a rapper also known as Lil Tim, who was affiliated with Quando Rondo's crew. On November 14th, 2020, King Von was buried in Chicago, Illinois. During the 64th annual Grammy Awards, King Von was included in the memorial montage. In August 2021, a mural depicting King Von was painted by artist Chris Devins in Parkway Garden, Chicago, where Von is from, the projects. The mural was seen as controversial amongst Chicago residents. Some of them argue that it would attract gang-related crime in the area, and it was a glorification of gang violence. Being an O-Block native, King Von had a notorious reputation. At a very young age, he had become a killer. He had become a killer that lived in his father's footsteps. He had a reputation for being a terrorizer of the streets and had a lot of people shook. Now, being a Black Disciple gang member, he had ops, the opposition, being the Gangster Disciples and several other gangs. He was considered by many one of the most vicious hitters or killers. Now, we all have those from our hood. If you've ever been from a vaudeville, a neighborhood, a turf, a set, whatever the case may be, you're going to have hitters. I can tell you numerous stories over and over again about several hitters from my neighborhood, but guess what? I ain't no rata. So that's never going to happen. But one thing is for sure is that King Von was definitely on the radar of the police the whole time, but they just couldn't get enough witnesses to speak on him. Now, when King Von blew up on the music scene, that took a little bit of the steam out of the street beefs. People started to recognize that he was going in a different direction. It was about his family, his lady, his kids. And he was trying to put the pressure on, apply the pressure to the music industry. Now, at the same time, he was an overnight success. Having Little Durk's money and Little Durk's representation behind him, he definitely blew up. Now, not only was he callous on the microphone, not only was his rap skills so eerie. If you listen to a lot of his songs made mention of several murders that he was actually allegedly involved in. There's not very many rappers in the industry today that could talk about, that could rap about songs about actual events that happen. One coming to mind is X-Rated. In the 90s, X-Rated was involved in a murder to which he did a rap song about, X-Rated being from Sacramento, California, the Garden Block area. And he was ultimately convicted for his crimes due to the rap lyrics of that song. King Von did the same thing. King Von liked to put a lot of the realism into his rap, a lot of the things he was going through, and a lot of the things that he lived. Now, it's alleged that he's a serial killer. A serial killer being someone that kills more than 3 people. According to King Von in some of his music, and according to reports and people that he spoke to, he had several bodies under his belt. Now, when you're a young gang member, the whole aspect of gangbanging is to garner respect and attention. And you either garner respect and attention by being a good guy and people will recognize that and like your personality, or by being a very active gang member and someone that everybody fears. There's only fear and love in the game, and some people hate to fear you and they love to fear you, and that's totally up to them. At the same time, King Von was striving for the fear factor. King Von being a youngster and coming from O-Block, a notorious neighborhood, a notorious area in Chicago, he was already feared at a very young age. He wanted the respect. Now, with respect in the gang realm comes bodies. With bodies comes fear. With fear comes a propensity to really go out there and get it. This man was living a double life, but a single life all at the same time. Double life being he was a successful rapper, entrepreneur, putting on for his people, making music videos and a lot of music and definitely coming up, while at the same time being feared in the streets as a very vicious killer, shooter, hitter, and gang member. Now, one of his most notorious killings that is alleged to have done, he is actually, it is said that he did do it post-mortem after his death. The Chicago police decided that he was culpable in the murder, was a girl. There was a girl that was from the adversary's Gangster Disciples, and she actually was a hitter. She was known to be a terrorizer. She was known to be equal or on King Von's level. And they actually had a tumultuous relationship between the two, a love-hate relationship. And that's called respect. When there's another hitter from the crew, whether it's man or woman, because a gun knows no face, knows no name, bullets know no name, you definitely respect your opposition. I've spoken about this a lot in the past. You can't have an opposition if you don't respect them in some form or fashion. So there definitely was a lot of text messages, a lot of social media messages, DMs between these two. basically talking about killing each other, but at the same time having a secret relationship behind the scenes where it has been known that King Von was actually infatuated, or if not infatuated, had a crush on this girl. Um, at the same time, she was a notorious hitter in her own right and would not even blink or think twice to tear King Von's head off. And on one fateful night, King Von was able to find her location. I say it over and over again to all people that listen. When your location is on, when you're blasting over social media where you're going to be, that's a fatal mistake. That's a flaw that could end your life quick. And on that night, she decided to post her location where she was at or where she was going with two friends. And it is alleged that King Von and several associates of his decided to jump in the SUV with some Dracos and make something pop. Ultimately, there was a shootout to which she was deceased. King Von did brag about it in a song. King Von did also, make references to her death in a bad light, shed a bad light on it. At the same time, I always wondered, and I continue to wonder to this day, and I'm sure you all do, how King Von was able to get away with all these murders, how he was being looked at, but no one ever cooperated. The fear of that man, that fear of that young 26-year-old man was more than we could ever fathom or ever know. There's not a lot of people that come into this lifetime that are true killers in their own right, like King Von was. At the same time, being a world, selling records all over the world, touring, doing concerts, making videos, making the charts. You wonder to yourself, how is this possible? But it is. When you gain a reputation on the streets, you're notorious, you're feared and respected, the industry opens for you. Him having Little Dirk in his pocket and being a good friend of his from the same area, actually was a blessing in disguise. I truly believe that if King Von was not murdered, he still would be number one on the charts. He still would be popping. These guys out of Chicago, this younger crowd out of Chicago, they're on a different level. They're definitely in the mix. They're definitely different from, say, California, New York City, Detroit, Atlanta, Miami. These guys have a notorious reputation for daylight shootings. They have a notorious reputation for holding it down for what they truly believe in, and they have a notorious reputation for being hitters. I've noticed in the past 10 years, Chicago elevating their shooting game and their murder game on a whole different level. King Von ultimately was one of the ones that was very influential in that. Now, there's several other hitters that are probably more worse or vicious than King Von, but because he had the industry name and because he was in the industry, his story will be forever told. So I ask you, was he the first serial killer in hip hop? Was he the most vicious killer in hip hop? There's been a lot of killings that have happened in the hip hop game, all the way from Biggie to Tupac, to Jam Master Jay. So many, that have died behind the bullet, behind the sword. Was King Von literally the worst or the most vicious out of all of them? That leaves a person to ponder, to wonder, what exactly was the motivation behind these murders and killings? Was the gang that influential in his life, or was he trying to live up to the standards of his father, who was in and out of his life? He made reference to his father in a lot of his songs. He lived for the memory of his father. Sometimes when you're not laced up in the game, with proper wisdom, proper game, you go off the deep end. King Von truly was two people. He was a loving father. He was an entrepreneur. He was someone on the rise in the music industry. But at the same time, he was a stone cold killer. According to authorities and those around him, this was the life he leaned towards. And that's why ultimately King Von was killed and his life tragically ended at a very young age. Now the memory will live on, but so will the stories. You have to ask yourself, was King Von really, honestly, a serial killer, or should he just be considered a real-life gangster from the streets? That is a question that we all must ask ourselves. What was King Von? But more importantly, who was King Von? That's the question. With me, my answer is he was a man. A feared and respected man, but a man all the same. One never knows the journey into the man's mind until they get there. Once you pass those gates, you're going to see things that you don't want to see. King Von lived that life. Rest in peace to King Von.